Good morning, everyone. Sorry for the delay. I'd like to dedicate this morning's learning, memory of my mother, Mrs. Shlomis Rabinowitz, Shlomas Pas Yaakov Eliezer, and dedicate the next few days of learning have been dedicated by Rochelle Burton Gollner for a number of people. In honor and in merit of the Malkin family, the Lieberman family, the Wexler family, and to John and Noreen and John Sweeney for the kindness they have shown to the Gollner family. Refuah Shalema should be a merit for Refuah Shalema for Baruch David ben Dvera, Shalema Chaya Rivka, Eliyahu Rafal ben Cyril Tova. You're in Mishna Arla, and we are in Mishnah Yudalid, Mishnah 14, Parak Beis, Chapter 2, Mishnah Yudalid, Mishnah 14. We're going to be doing today two Mishnayos, Yudalid and Tesvav, 14 and 15. They are practically identical. Sa'ar shal truma b'shal kilei hakerem shenafu l'seich isa. A sourdough of truma and a sourdough of kilei hakerem. That means it was made from grain that was planted in a vineyard, which makes the grain forbidden. So you have these two sourdoughs. One is truma, one is kilei hakerem. Truma, we know, is permissible to Kohanim, forbidden to non-Kohanim. Kilei hakerem is forbidden to everyone. And they both fell into a dough. Lo yivazeh kadei l'chametz v'lo yivazeh kadei l'chametz. Neither has enough to leaven the dough on its own. V'nitztarfu, but they did combine together because they're both the same kind of dough. So they're able to come together, v'chimtzu, and together leaven the dough. So what's going to be the status here? This dough was leavened by together a combination of the kilei hakerem and the truma. Who will be permissible in this dough? Who will not be? Asur lazarim mutar l'kohanim. It is forbidden for non-Kohanim, but it's permissible to Kohanim. Now, the reason that we say this is because the dough came from both truma and from kilei hakerem. Both of those are forbidden to non-Kohanim. And therefore, non-Kohanim will not be able to partake from this dough. However, it's going to be permissible to the Kohanim. It's permissible to Kohanim. Because the only factor that would be forbidding it to the Kohanim is the fact that we have some sourdough that is from kilei hakerem, which is forbidden to everyone. But this sourdough on its own, but sourdough of kilei hakerem on its own was not able to leaven the dough. It can only do it in combination with the truma dough. And the truma dough is permissible to the Kohanim. So from that aspect, from that point, from that angle, from the angle of the Kohanim, I really have what we had before, Zeb Zegerim. When two things together, when each one causes something to happen, we say mutter is permissible. The forbidden part is nullified. We don't take it into consideration. And the permissible part is what we say, is what we focus on. So therefore, in this case, from the point of Kohanim, the only factor here that would forbid it to them is the kilei hakerem, is the fact that it's kilei hakerem. And from the point of kilei hakerem, since it couldn't leaven the dough by itself, going to do it together with the truma sourdough, that's zeb zegarim. That means both are factors in bringing about the result. And this Mishnah is following the opinion of the sages who say that in that situation, it is permissible. Now, we also have to clarify in this case, the sourdough is truma, we have a sourdough of kilei hakerem. Those things are forbidden to consume. So we have to be talking about that. It has to be talking about where in actuality, the dough, there's enough dough. You have 100 times the sourdough of truma. You have 200 times the sourdough of kilei hakerem, which is the amounts that you need just to nullify those forbidden things that are there. But as we learned previously, but if the effects of the forbidden thing still remains, like like in the case of sourdough where it leavens the bread, if its effects are still there, doesn't make a difference how much is there. It's not going to become nullified. So in this case, you may have enough to actually nullify in proportion of the chulin of the permissible food to the truma that's there and to the kilei hakerem. So you have enough to nullify those objects themselves. But that's not going to help you if their effects remain, which is because they're leavening. Okay, so because they're leavening here, the fact that I have so much more of the chulin permissible food against these other foods, it's not going to make a difference. But what does make the difference is the fact that each one on its own cannot leaven the dough. They can only do it in combination. So if we look at it from the point of a non-Kohen, both sourdoughs that have come together, although again they are separate prohibitions, the opinion of this Tana, the first opinion of the Mishnah, doesn't have a problem with them being of different prohibitions. They're of the same type, and therefore they can combine even if they are of different prohibitions. So now when they do combine though, so from the point of a non-Kohen, I have Truma contributing, I have Kilei HaKerem contributing, both are reasons to forbid this to a non-Kohen. So to a non-Kohen, it's going to be forbidden. But to a Kohen, the only factor here that would forbid it to him is the fact that it's Kilei HaKerem. But the Kilei HaKerem itself doesn't have the ability to leaven the dough on its own, only in combination with the Truma sourdough. And then we say, Zev Zagorim, when both bring about the result, it's permissible. It's going to be permissible. So that's why we say here that to non-Kohanim it's forbidden, but to Kohanim it's permissible. Rabbi Shimon matir lazarim v'lo Kohanim. The Mishnah concludes with the opinion of Rabbi Shimon, who permits it both to the non-Kohanim and to the Kohanim. Even the non-Kohanim can partake here. And that's because Rabbi Shimon is of the opinion, as we've had previously, that if the prohibitions are different, they cannot combine. Not only do two different types prevent combining together to create a prohibition, but even if it's two separate prohibitions, they can't combine together. So if they can't combine together, so yes, physically, they actually cause the dough to leaven. But I don't look at them as together. They don't combine together from the point of the laws of what's permitted and what's not permitted. And therefore, I have to look at them as separately. They did combine together to actually cause the leavening to happen, but that's not going to make a difference because that's really a leavening happening from two separate things on their own. And being that I have enough to nullify the truma on its own, I have enough to nullify the Kilei HaKerem on its own, they're going to be nullified. They don't combine together, according to Rabbi Shimon, to make one unit, because there are two separate prohibitions. So they can't combine as one unit. If they can't combine as one unit, then although the dough has leavened, I don't see it as a leavening from the Trum and Meiser together. It's each one separately, and each one on its own wasn't able to do it. So an effect is here, but I can't see it as an effect from each one separately because they don't combine. Because since they don't combine, I can't see them as a unit. It's an effect from each one separately, but each one on its own couldn't do it. And therefore, each one halachically becomes nullified from the point of creating a prohibition here. Now, that's a Mishnah Yudalit. Mishnah Tesvav is a repeat, but it's a repeat just with a different case, because we did learn previously that if you even if you have a ratio of 100 to 1 or 200 to 1, but the effect is still there in the sense of leavening, it doesn't become nullified. Another example of an effect remaining that won't become nullified is if it gives flavor, if it spices, if it gives flavor. There too, you could have the ratio of nullification, but it won't make a difference because the effect of the prohibited item is still there. So, and that happens both when it leavens and both when it flavors. So now Mishnah Tesvav just puts the case in a case of flavoring. Tavlin, spices, shel truma v'shel kilei HaKerem, of truma and of kilei HaKerem. Shenap l'bikdei, they fell into a pot. Meaning this is a pot cooking with food. Each one on its own cannot spice, cannot give flavor. But they did combine together and did give taste. Their flavors are similar enough that they reinforce each other so that they now can be considered combining to flavor the food. And so now the question is, what's going to be the status? So as the previous Mishnah said, it's prohibited to the non-Kohanim, but it's permissible to the Kohanim, because from the point of a non-Kohen, both factors here that have combined together, forbidden to a non-Kohen, and they accomplish that. But from the point of a Kohen, where the only factor to prohibit is the fact that it's Kilei HaKerem, being that the Kilei HaKerem on its own could not have given flavor, we have a situation of the Zeb and Zeb Garbim, the two factors. We have two factors, one permissible, one permitted, that bring about the result. And we say then, mutter, it's permissible. The forbidden factor is not taken into consideration. We only look at the permissible one. Reb Shimon matir lezar v'lekohanim. Reb Shimon permits it both to Zarim and to Kohanim. Because Reb Shimon says they cannot combine together because they have separate prohibitions. Since they cannot combine together, it's each one on it. We look at each one on its own, and each one on its own could not give flavor, and therefore each one is nullified in regard to its ability to have any kind of effect on the status of this dough, both to Kohanim and to Zarim. To both, it will be permissible, according to Reb Shimon. We continue with the laws of Rechilas in the Chavetz Chaim, Klal Hey, chapter 5, Sif Hey, paragraph 5. From Izet Tira, Kamanoya lo harba b'nei adam. From all this we've been discussing, we could see how foolishly people act. Shed b'tiva m'tamid l'droish mechavareyim adira pleni odaisam. You have these people who are constantly asking others, what does so-and-so say about me? Va'afilu im yedias davar zeh einaf kamino lahem al haba. Even if it has no practical relevance. Now, when the other people don't want to reveal it, they pressure them until they finally reveal what so-and-so said about them. And it comes up being something that was derogatory about them. They accept it as the absolute truth. And because of that, they become enemies. If we start calculating the different prohibitions that a person transgresses by being this way, by having this very bad habit of pressuring others to reveal what someone said about them, there's a lot. As he said, it's too much to list. It means to say that there's a lot, the potential of many prohibitions being transgressed is here. The prohibition of accepting, believing Lashon Rechilas, that's even if somebody just comes over and tells you something that could be relevant to you in the future. As we discussed previously, the Torah says you're not allowed to believe it, just take it into consideration as a possibility. And when it's not relevant, you're not even allowed to listen to it. Well, the more so when we're talking about a situation where you pressure your friend, you pressure him into speaking rechilas. And now you make you as the listener accept rechilas. Thus, of course, it's forbidden. Even if, let's say, it came upon you, you're not allowed to believe. Well, the more so if you pressured this person to speak the rechilas. At the end of the day, you're a sinner and causing someone else to sin. Therefore, a person has to stay far away from inquiring about these things, meaning from inquiring about what somebody say about me. Unless the person is sure that this would be relevant for the future, in order to protect himself from that person. Have a wonderful day.